this meeting to order and recognize that we are gathered on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation, and super grateful to be back here after a week in the big city. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So move.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And adoption of minutes from regular council, September 11th.
So moved. Oh, sorry.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And we have a delegation, Comox Valley Food Policy Council. Come on up. You can stand or sit, whatever you like. Just make sure your mic is live.
Okay.
In the
After all.
danger chair.
Okay, we heard that rolls.
Hold on to the table if you need to.
Well, I'm Joanne Bays, the co-chair of the Food Policy Council for about a year now. I just relocated my family here about a year ago, but I'm not new to food policy at all. I've been living food policy. I'm a population health nutritionist. I am a community developer. I'm a food policy wonk. And you don't usually get all three of those in one. And I've spent several decades inspiring, supporting, engaging people in the transformation of food systems and policy to support that. So I may be new here, but not so new to the topic. And I'm enjoying this. Oh, wow. This summer was amazing. And I'm here with my distinguished colleague, another member of the Food Policy Council, a new member, and this is Naomi Roberts. And she's a brilliant researcher. And I've had a little bit of the pleasure of spending a bit of time with her more recently. And I think she's destined to be a big mover and shaker in our movement too. So it's an honor.
It's not scripted.
No, it's not scripted. Not scripted. Right off the cuff. Anyway, I'm tasked today with, we are presenting a Food Policy Council. I know some of you are intimately familiar with the Food Policy Council, but there are a couple of new members here who are not. So I'm going to talk about the what is it, why is it, who's on it, what are some of their priorities, and what are some of the things that they're proud of accomplishing. And I will acknowledge that I'm quite proud of some of the things you seem to be doing all on your own without us. So what can we do to help that along? And then Naomi's going to speak after me. She's going to talk about future potential, like how can we work a little closer together to develop some synergies to help expedite or move forward, build on what you've already got underway. So that's, okay, I got to figure out how to use this. It should be easy. Oop.
Down button.
I did do that one. Try, oh. Okay. Yeah, I want to start too by acknowledging that we're meeting on the unceded territory of the Comox First Nations. But I want to expand that acknowledgement to thank all of the Indigenous people, including elders, family members, staff, volunteers, people who've partnered with the Food Policy Council and helping us to achieve that common vision. I think we have a lot to learn from our Indigenous partners, particularly about our relationship to food. It's not just something, as you know, you pick up at the store. It's not just something that's a bag of nutrients. It's medicine. And it is that medium, that connection between each other and our place, our planet, you know. And I like to tell the story, if I can, quickly about my family. I actually come from a family of politicians and farmers. And my father actually sold potato chips for a living. But they were homegrown from the state he was in. And they were local potatoes, local fat, local salt. And, you know, I learned very early on the importance of food and its relationship to who we are and our life. And I guess as a parent, when I had my daughter, one of the first things she did was screamed about the process that brought her here. And the next thing that she did is I put her to the breast, right? So food is with you when you're born, and food is with you when you pass. My grandfather, Joe Blow, was a farmer, and he lived to be over 100 years old, and the last thing they did was took away his IV and his food. So it's there at the beginning, it's there at the end. It's central to who we are, our connections in our community. So that's a little bit about my family. That's who I am. But I'm talking today about who we are in terms of the Food Policy Council. It's actually, the council is a hybrid organization. It's comprised of individuals who represent civil society organizations and government. Okay, there's 18 members to the Food Policy Council, and 6 of those members are elected officials, and 2 of them are here, Vicki and Jesse. And we do have elected officials from each of the different government bodies. So that would be each of the municipalities, the CRVD, and the school district. And it's really wonderful having elected officials on the Committee of 18, because the food policy dialogue that we have at our table is then taken up to their tables, where it's elevated and put into their discussions, and it's embedded into policy. And without those voices at our table, we would not get there. I know that. So policies such as your chicken or your bee policy, or more recently policy within, I think it is the CRVD with the CVRD, with ensuring that food is in emergency planning, I believe, right? So, yeah. So it's really important that we have those faces at the table, but we also have other people who represent various sectors of the food system. So you'll have farmers, so the producers. You'll have the processing people. You'll have people who are engaged in selling food, so representative from the restaurant industry. So there's quite a mix of food system faces at the table. And then we have these young researchers and policy people. So our purpose, so it was founded in 2019. Established in 2019, founded by the CVRD. Funds were provided to administer this council, and the council is administered via a nonprofit organization, Lush Valley Food Action Society. I'm sure you're all familiar with Lush, okay. And it's great because of the huge alignment with vision and values, and they really are a leader in food action. Anyway, it's a forum for advocacy around policy development and support of policy towards their vision of a food system that is ecologically sustainable, economically viable, and socially just. Okay. Their priorities, I hope these aren't new, but they do align with yours. Food security. Specific work is being done focused on emergency planning and preparedness in relation to food security, the local food economy, and climate change adaptation and mitigation. Education is another big thrust. I'm quite involved with the school food subcommittee and our work towards getting healthy local food in the minds and on the plates of students, right? So it's just not about getting the food in the schools, but also integrating education into that as well. And local food economy, development of procurement for institutions, and I hope I can be helpful in that regard, and Naomi as well, with our experience in that. I'm actually the Director Emeritus of Farm to Cafeteria Canada, which is all about getting healthy local foods in public institutions. And then just generally policy, whatever policy comes up, food policy comes that needs some support. That's sort of a constant, right, that is in there with our work. Some of the work that we're really proud of. I wish Morita were here today, because I think she could speak to this for a couple of hours, even though the organization is only new, founded in 2019. They've done a heck of a lot of work supporting, and so they put some examples up here, supporting the OCP review and the food systems chapter in the Courtney's OCP, supporting the development of urban agriculture policies. I've been in some of those forums. But there's been work beyond the local, provincial, and national. And some of this is up here around healthy school food. And I think this is something Arzina points out quite a bit. Apparently, the resolution to get the inclusion of food security in emergency planning came from the Food Policy Council. That's actually ours.
Yeah.
And it went up through UBCM. You were part of that, sure. And now it's a provincial mandate. So that is something we feel like is great. The other pieces were more of a support role, and have seen some great outcomes with that work on the national school food front. Okay. You know, we were looking at food policy leadership in Cumberland. I can see why you two are both on the committee. Just looking at some of the work you're doing, your support for food share programs, food shed, food box, that's fantastic. Permissive zoning for agriculture and sales, so that's great as well. And you are noted provincially and beyond for your being the first in setting up a social procurement framework, and we see that's something we could put some local food policy lens in. And right now we understand you're doing your OCP review, and we think it's a great opportunity for economic, social, and ecological well-being through food to include that. Now I'm going to let Naomi speak here. I probably went over
Yeah, I'll
my
switch with
6
you.
minutes.
No worries. How much time do we have left?
We have 10 minutes total.
Okay, perfect. That is amazing. We're going to step quickly through a couple areas of high-level food policy development. These aren't necessarily, they are by no means the only areas of food policy development, nor are they necessarily the absolute priorities for the Village of Cumberland, but just to illustrate what's happening in communities on the ground that don't directly involve agricultural land, but are still enactments of food policy that the Food Policy Council can be interested in supporting. So the first of which is local food procurement. As Joanne said, Cumberland is a leader in social procurement. So how can we integrate food procurement into that process? Things that communities are doing around local food purchasing policies, around creating targets for that to support the local food economy. There are some examples around targets for municipally run events, targets for meetings, encouraging local food purchasing from third parties, incentives for procurement among businesses, and some examples there are linked in Squamish and Saanich as well. There are others, just an overview of a few areas. The second area is around support for local food infrastructure. So what kind of infrastructures can support a local food in the economy, can support the broader regional food environment, things like greenhouses, production facilities, rainwater harvesting, community kitchens for communal processing and or commercial processing on a smaller scale. Examples around permissive zoning for food storage and distribution. The City of Nelson, perhaps in a similar position, had no agricultural land, but they saw themselves as a hub for the surrounding area and updated their zoning bylaw accordingly to get more processing, storage, warehousing uses that they felt would be appropriate for the surrounding agricultural land and support the community, the agricultural food system more broadly. Encouraging uses for food in industrial zones, which I understand is also topical for this community as well. There's a lot of really good work happening here. And community benefit agreements in support of food infrastructure, which again, the City of Vancouver has a lot of experience in a different community context, but still thinking about how can development contribute to local food infrastructure, the local food economy. Food access and security is a third area that's really important for local governments to start thinking about food access, programming, how to support work that's happening on the ground in the context of food access programs for emergency food services. Affordable housing is another perhaps less thought about but extremely important form of food security programming. It is the biggest bill at the end of the month and has a direct relationship on how much money is available for food for folks who are in a tighter position. And emergency planning around food, which really was topical in the pandemic as we shifted local governments pretty quickly to emergency operations centers, and understanding how food was a part of that. How do people access food if they can't do so in their normal day-to-day? We're also on an island and thinking about infrastructure and increasing extreme events. Preventing food, like emergency planning around food, is certainly an area that people are thinking more about, and for good reason. There's an OCP in the pipes. So we're here today to talk about food planning in the context of the OCP and bring that up as an important area of focus, and it has been in Cumberland, and we hope that it continues to be. Victoria was really, about 10 years ago, just over, had a first sort of comprehensive chapter on food policy in their OCP, and communities are increasingly understanding that that's an important part of community planning for well-being and incorporating food in their OCP. More recently, Squamish, Courtney, I'm sure you guys are familiar with other processes that have also really brought food to the forefront of their planning. We're also here to talk a bit about the Vancouver Island Food Charter, which shows high-level priorities. I believe it was included in the agenda package around vision and intent for food system. And we bring this up to provide, perhaps, if it's helpful, from some language, some priorities, some areas to think about food planning in a more comprehensive way, should the village decide that it is something that is helpful and should be signed. And the signatories, just a few to list up there, but there are a number on the island that have signed the food charter as a way to show that vision and intent. Next steps, we have two requests of Cumberland, the Village of Cumberland, that we wanted to put forward. The first is that the Village of Cumberland work with the Comox Valley Food Policy Council to incorporate food into their OCP through community engagement, development, and implementation of dedicated food policy. And this is the second, is to consider signing the Vancouver Island Food Charter to inform that process, should that be a helpful tool. This is our contact information. Did I forget anything?
No, you were
Okay.
perfect.
Oh my gosh. So we're here. We'd love to answer questions and love to definitely work as closely as possible together and support the incredible work that's already being done here. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. Council, questions? Are you open to questions?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just around the Vancouver Island Charter. So when Courtney was doing their OCP, you may not know, I don't know, but I could probably ask my colleagues there, but how that fed into their OCP process by signing that. You're kind of saying that you could use it as a tool. I imagine it has some visioning statements or something in it, but how that would then kind of feed into.
Yeah, absolutely. I like as a high level planning document. I think that first, yes, the folks at Courtney will definitely have more precise answers for you, and perhaps Joanne. But
Yeah.
it's just it provides these areas of high level policy language, high level areas of food policy that again don't necessarily involve agricultural land to help shape the kind of priorities and inform the OCP process. But I'm sure the city of Courtney would have exactly how that fit into their review process. And they're not the only ones that have signed the charter as well, so there could be some more research around there.
And I think because we brought this forward several years ago and it went into a placeholder until we did our OCP, I believe that staff is also aware of the charter and how
yeah.
it might integrate with the OCP. So I think we're on that, but thank you. And we'll stick on to it. Sorry, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, I see it as a lens, really. It's a lens of thinking. As you're developing your OCP, you're going back to the charter and saying, how does this align with some of these things that we've said here? So it's just that higher level lens. And there are other lenses you're applying. We're just suggesting that, and once that's signed, it makes it, it strengthens the argument to do the things that are in the higher value visionary statements that you're agreeing to in the charter. You know, so it's just, yeah,
It's foundation, yeah.
it's just a foundational lens.
Yeah. Did you have anything else?
No.
Go ahead, Councillor Brecky.
This is kind of maybe an abstract question with regards to this, but is there, in your work, is there any incentivization from turning lawns into food or those sorts of programs around it? Or like that's for me, it's such a waste of time to have these good neighbor bylaws in a way when you could actually just turn a whole lawn into something usable, which is probably the most basic form
Yeah.
of food security for people. Is that
There's
work
a
that you
lot
do?
of work done around agriculture in residential spaces. The city of Victoria in particular has a lot of precedence on boulevard gardening, how to promote that, how to promote growing in the city. They had a project and really revamped a lot of their policy, their zoning and bylaws related to just that promoting, so there are definitely precedents out there and definitely research we could help support with to figure out what's appropriate for the context and what kind of questions you folks have around that.
I think there was a real culture and a want, probably here too, to grow lawns for, lawns to loaves or loaves to lawns. I can't remember the name of that program, but when I was in Vancouver, it was lawns on the rooftops, lawns on the boulevards, lawns in the back, or gardens, sorry.
Yeah.
Gardens, backyards. They were growing everywhere, and I think people just need that encouragement. They didn't know that they could dig up the boulevard and put in a garden. And then some standards around, like some requirements of things that you don't want sort of listed out. Sometimes it was water. Water was an issue, so making that available or seeing what the city could do around that. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Some of this I could see working very well here. I'd love to see agritech and different facilities out in our industrial lands. That sort of green type industries would be great out there. Can you just give me an example of what a community benefit agreement is? You mentioned one of those, Vancouver.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's an agreement when developers are awarded a contract to develop in the city. There's a stipulation that there are certain types of community benefits that need to be incorporated into that. And it's up to whatever those could look like a lot of different things. Vancouver took the step to incorporate food infrastructure within that benefit agreement for certain development types. They have to be over a certain scale and size, and there are certain types of infrastructure that needed to be supported from the developer coming into that community and developing. Yeah, happy to provide more information.
And
but
so
that's the
that could be
overview.
as simple as community gardens or?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Could be a communal processing facility in the building. It could be a community kitchen. It could
Community
be
kitchen.
programming for community gardens. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like a side avenue to social procurement without calling it that.
More like an amenity.
Vanity, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Anyways, my question about the charter was answered. I just appreciate the work you guys are doing, and congratulations on your successes so soon.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
It's a motivated team for sure.
Yeah.
Pretty knowledgeable.
Really.
Yeah.
So when we're thinking about food security in Cumberland and spreading the joy of growing food everywhere, especially this time of year, we need to be very aware of bears. We have a lot of bears, so we are a bit of a bear highway, particularly this year. And so there's that piece of it. So fall crops, not ideal. Because they're definitely an attractant. Composts also challenging if they're not secure, like all that stuff. So just when we look to develop this feedback for our OCP, that we need to keep that in the back of our mind, because I struggle with it myself. When do I have to pull in my pumpkins before somebody comes along and grabs it?
Absolutely.
Somebody being a bear, not
Yeah,
not a person.
yeah. Some furry body.
Yeah, some furry creature. Or the raccoons that were in my backyard last night.
I think it's interesting if you look in the various contexts, like this is a huge issue here where it wouldn't be a different. You're going to find unique little slices of the food pie that really fit, like the green infrastructure on the land you were talking about. So, and then we were talking food processing, food distribution. It's a big problem
Yeah.
in the region. Well, everywhere. Really.
Yeah.
We've gotten rid of that. So maybe it's not composting. Maybe it's, maybe it's small seed
Yeah.
for composting and larger for processing might be an answer.
Yeah.
And
Or maybe there
starting
needs to be
small.
education tied to the
Yeah.
composting in a
Yeah,
way. There's
I'm
like,
not
these
talking
are the
about
containers that the
composting.
bears
Yeah.
will eat through. These are the
Exactly.
containers that the bears
Will
Exactly.
not.
will eat through with a longer period of time, hopefully
Yeah.
all night, and you'll arrive by morning. But
Yeah.
anyway,
I wasn't throwing out the compost. I was just saying, well, maybe that's not the.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, different.
I've always been approached life with the bumper car idea that if you got the place that you can run ahead, or you can spend time doing this, right? So where are your open lanes, right?
Yeah.
Where are your open bike lanes, I guess, or car lanes, and let's do it.
Yeah.
The other thing that we've come up against is we allow backyard chickens, but we can't allow, as far as I understand, through Island Health, the sale of eggs. So that's a bit of a rub as well, if you guys have any.
Oh, yeah, you need to get
Um,
island health inspectors on your side. You gotta get the right one. Yeah, we've been able to get, for example, in Haida Gwaii, we were able to get a meat processing facility there. We were able to get things done by understanding the regulations and how to interpret them, and getting a licensing officer that was receptive to this and helped us find a variation to the regulation that allowed us to move forward. So they've got that sense of, my job is to help you get there, not to be in your way.
A block.
So we need that kind of person. I don't know who that is in the health authority, or if there are several, but gotta find them.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Any other questions?
I just was hoping to, and I guess we can work together on the Food Policy Council, but to learn more about the permissive zoning that Nelson had put in for food storage and processing. I think that's something that
Yeah.
that could fit our slice. Of
Yeah,
the
well, no, we
pie.
can definitely
Yeah.
follow up on it. It was, I spoke with the one of the planners a number of years back related to a different hat I was wearing. I work at the Institute for Sustainable Food Systems at KPU and do policy research with them, so that example was at the tip of fingers, but it was a conversation that happened a number of years ago, and it was a pretty straightforward zoning bylaw update. Yeah.
And just tagged on to that, years ago, the school was trying to procure food for their school meal program in the Okanagan. And of course, all the food is ready in abundance in the fall, so it's about storage. So they have approached the winery that had a storage facility, and so they bought all the onion and potato and carrot and put it in the storage, and then the menus were developed with all of this stuff that we've already. We're going to have a carrot a week, right? So how to do that, right? But it had there had to have some permission policy changes around storage there too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it the same kind of?
Yeah, very, very related.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hopefully see you soon.
Yes.
Yes,
Well,
what a
I
receptive
think we're meeting this week.
It is a thick.
Are they prints out, or are
you
we the
guys
only
want a
ones
co-
who get
do
to
you want a
appreciate how thick
copy?
this paper is?
I think we have it all in our
Yeah, I've
package.
got it on the-
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go put it back in my credenza.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, can we have a motion to receive
Sure.
that delegation? please?
Move that council receive the delegation from the Comox Valley Food Policy Council.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Yes, thank you. Thanks so much. Okay, reports, development permit and development variance permit 2793 Beck Avenue.
Move receipt.
Second.
Oh, we don't do that anymore.
It's okay.
We did it.
Hi, Courtney.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. This report is for a development permit and development variance permit at 2793 Beck Avenue. The recommendation is for the permits to be issued. This is a proposal to develop a phase one part of this property by constructing a light industrial building with an office and associated accessory buildings, including a maintenance bay. The development variance permit request is for the height of the maintenance bay, which is considered an accessory building and is currently designed to be just about a meter over the height. So, both an environmental development permit under an environmental protection development permit area and industrial development permit area are required. This is one of a few development permits similar to this on Beck Avenue, where we have the environmental report from the subdivision provided to demonstrate compliance with the environmental development permit area guidelines. And in particular, sort of one of the key elements of that subdivision design is that there's a 3-meter wide bioswale behind the north side of the properties, which functions as both stormwater as well as connectivity area for wildlife. So that is present and is intended to address the connectivity requirements for that 6-lot subdivision. For the industrial development permit area requirements, the report goes through and describes a lot of the forming characteristics of the development. In particular, I'll highlight that there's quite a bit of landscaping planned for the frontage to, although this is an industrial development, there's development permit area requirements to sort of soften that look and provide some screening from the industrial uses, for some screening from the street. And the application is consistent with the guidelines in Development Permit Area 5 Industrial as well. We did work with the applicants on a dust mitigation plan, considering that like half of the property would be left as a gravel parking area, so there's definitely a concern about dust blowing around in the dry months if there wasn't appropriate mitigation in place. So we have that plan now, and it'll be part of the permit. So for the development variance permit, this is a request to increase the height of that maintenance bay, which is like really quite close to almost a part of the main building, but is separate and is a separate accessory building, to increase the height from the permitted 4.5 meters to 5.8 meters. It's still below the height of the principal building, which is just over 8 meters. And you can see renderings and drawings attached to the permits as well. For public notification, there was notification of the development permit earlier this spring, and this was before the development application procedures bylaw was amended and no longer requires notification of purely development permits. And then later on, during evolution of the application and staff review, it was determined that accessory building would need a variance for the height. So the required notification for the variance was done later, just recently, in fact, prior to this council meeting, and no submissions have been received. So as alternatives, council may refer this to the Advisory Planning Commission, but that isn't recommended in this case, given the nature of the application and consistent with the Bevan area industrial lands concept plan and council priorities related to development of that area.
Thank you. Questions? Anybody? Councillor Sullivan?
I did have a question with what the palliative dust palliated. Sorry, what that word is. What are those?
Palliatives.
Palliatives. What is a dust palliative?
I might have to look that up. Where is that? Where do we have that written?
It's on
It's on the end of the report.
page 141 of the report. Applying best management practices to suppress dust emissions.
Okay.
It says the use of dust palliatives will conserve water and align with the Village of Cumberland water management plans. The dust palliative products will conform to the current MODI recognized products list and be applied in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions.
Like a process.
Or like a
Usually like an oil or some other heavier.
vegetable oil?
Yeah, it's something that just tamps it down.
Probably.
It doesn't dry out in the sun. It's not like they water it. So.
Yes, that's correct. And I don't have a more precise answer for you. So I can get back to you on exactly what it is, but the idea is that it is a water alternative.
That's not petroleum based.
Yes, that is like inert and not
Yeah.
going to remain in the
I think
environment.
they can be petroleum based, so there might be a reason to
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They put
We
nitrogen
don't want
down
that.
sometimes
We don't want
too.
petroleum based. So that leads me to my question, which is they're planning to have a fleet maintenance operations there. And so in table 2 on page 65, there's a list of soil contamination, accidental spills, stationary equipment containing hazardous fluids, machines and vehicles not in use, a bunch of mitigation things so that it's not getting into the aquifer or into our sewage. But that's on an old report, and I'm not sure that can be. I know there are best practices for those types of things, but because it's not actually happening right now in this application, will it be dealt with later, or how do we make sure that all those trucks aren't sitting there leaking onto that permeable surface, which I love that they have a permeable surface, but with a fleet of trucks that need repair, feels dangerous to me.
Okay, so just to be sure, I'm understanding we're talking about the next phase that's mentioned as being planned for approximately 3 years in the future? Yes, okay. Well, another development permit will be required in the
Okay,
industrial and environmental development permit area.
okay,
So
for
we
when they
addressed at
start
that
doing
time.
that there.
Pardon me?
For when they start, so they've got a use
Yeah.
that's gonna happen now, and then they're gonna add the maintenance out there?
That's correct.
Okay,
Well, yes, I mean, okay, but just make sure I'm understanding, like, phase one does include a maintenance bay, so there's some level of maintenance, and then the next phase is further maintenance. So does it answer your question, or?
I just wanna make sure that that the maintenance bay and the fleet maintenance is, included is using the practices appropriate to the EDPA. Even
Right.
though it's a future use, sort of.
Right.
And some is inside, because
Yeah.
inside the bay, they likely have the whole thing where it separates and does its thing. But outside, the vehicle's waiting, that may or may not be leaking, what's the thing there? I just wanted
Okay.
to flag that. I don't expect you to
Okay.
have an answer right now. But just to make sure that because the aquifer is shallow there, and we wouldn't want to be polluting Morrison Creek.
Yeah, I think the concern is a bunch of derelict vehicles
Runoff.
parked on the empty lot, because that empty lot at this point is not covered in what we're talking about tonight.
I think the only thing that I read in there was about the stormwater management system has the oil grit separator, so when the flows over that land and into the,
Yeah,
It also says machines and vehicles not in use for extended time will have a containment tray placed under the engine.
right, but, yeah.
It's in writing.
So there are lots of other toxins that come out of vehicles, so just making sure that we're looking after that. And that's all I had.
yeah, and then can we go back to the palliatives that being applied, that they're environmentally friendly palliatives?
Yeah, through the mayor, what I could do is just get some more information about that. That was something was reviewed by operations, who has a little bit more of that expertise in that area. I can just confirm that I understand what it is, and if we need to make any adjustments before the permit's issued, we could do that. And I could also report back to council, just more specific details about the material they're using.
Awesome, thank
Okay.
you. That'd be great. Any other questions?
I did note the landscaping to be extensive, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, and the maintenance bay looks appropriate. Like at the back of the building there, it totally looks appropriate for the what's going on out there.
Agreed.
Okay, no more questions? There's a recommendation there.
If I can get back to it. I'll move that council approve the development permit 2023-01 DP and development variance permit 2023-08 DV for the property described Lot 5, Section 34, Township 10, Comox District Plan, EPP 104047, 2793 Beck Avenue.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? And that's carried. And now we're at Heritage Alteration Permit 2723 Dunsmuir.
Okay, this is an application for Heritage Alteration Permit, 2723 Dunsmuir for the old King George Hotel. And the recommendation is that the application was referred to the Heritage Committee for comment. So this is an exciting proposal to renovate this historic hotel built in 1933. It was added to the Village of Cumberland Community Heritage Register just a couple of years ago. The renovation would create a 7-unit boutique hotel and 2 commercial rental units on the main floor. And the hotel would have 6 units on the second story and 1 accessible unit on the main floor. Also, there'd be a hotel lobby at the entrance in between the 2 commercial rental units. And all required parking can be accommodated at the rear of the property. There would also be a public EV charging station and some landscaping in that area. So the report goes through more of a description of the characteristics of the development and as it relates to the Heritage Conservation Area guidelines. I would note that on the advertising it was also advertised that if parking variance was required, but we kind of sorted that out, so that made some adjustments and looked a little more closely at it, so parking variance is not actually required, but in case you noticed that, that's what happened there. And pursuant to our development application procedures bylaw, a few things happened for public notification. There is a notice posted on the property. The applicant scheduled and held a public information meeting on September 12th, and a notice of that meeting was advertised in the record and mailed to residents within 75 meters of the property. At the public information meeting, 22 residents attended, and the report includes a summary of the comments that were received. And so the recommendation is to refer to Heritage Committee, and then based on their feedback, return to council with another report.
Awesome. Questions? Councillor Berkey?
Oh, I was just enthusiastic. I didn't have a question per se.
I think we're all
And-
enthusiastic
And
about
I'm on the
this.
Heritage Committee, so I'm looking forward to this as well. So.
Councillor Sullivan, did you have something?
I was also
Just
gonna-
also,
yeah.
we're all just really excited.
Yeah. I was going to ask if there's going to be a meat draw when it's over.
There's going to be a meat draw, and there'll be a hot dog rotisserie with 3-week-old
Definitely
hot
vote
dogs
for it
like
if
the
it
old
means-
days.
I did want to note appreciation for addressing the property line problem. Creative and just thanks. Thanks for that. It was, yeah.
I'll certainly pass that on to the applicant who worked hard on that solution as well.
Yeah, I bet. And the green space between that building, I'm not thinking. And
The old Moons building?
is it, no, it's not Moons. What is there?
The new moons.
The B-side.
That empty, there's an empty lot there. That's not part of the property, is it?
Old ice shave lot.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Smoker's Pit.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking.
I don't see anything in the drawing.
That it's a separate lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, great. Thank you. There's a recommendation there.
I'll move the council refer the Heritage Alteration Permit 2023-02 HAP application for the properly described Lot 9, Block 7, District Lot 21, Nelson District Plan VIP 522, 2723 Dunsmuir Avenue to the Heritage Committee.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? And that's carried too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney. Regional Recreation Access Membership Pilot Project. Hello, Ryan. Come on up.
Thank you, everybody. So the purpose of this this report, is to seek approval for a pilot project for a regional recreation membership. And so this would be a joint membership shared between the Village of Cumberland, Town of Comox, City of Courtney, CVRD. The project has been largely driven by Courtney and the CVRD. We have been participating as regional partners. I don't, honestly, I'll get into it a little bit. I don't see it as having a huge impact on Cumberland residents one way or the other. But I do see it as important to our regional partnerships to participate in the pilot, which is why we're here. The idea of the trial, the pilot project would be we'd offer a 1-year regional membership. We'd sell it between January and March 2024. The cost of the membership would be $570, which is 15% more than a CVRD annual membership, which is the highest priced of all of our jurisdictions. 138% more than a Cumberland annual membership. And financially, for the pilot project, the way we've sorted out so far, or the way we've sorted out for it, is that where the membership is purchased, that jurisdiction will keep the money, with a caveat that if at the end of this pilot project we see that there is a significant discrepancy, then we'll make some, we'll get together and we'll sort it out, we'll make it whole. And then all of that will inform how the financial structure of any potential permanent project or program would go. Yeah, so like I said, I expect the uptake to be minimal. There was a survey put forth, the city of Courtenay largely put that out this past spring. It indicated that a lot of people in the Comox Valley are interested in a regional membership, but very few people are actually willing to pay more for it. So based on that, I think a small number of people would benefit from it. Essentially, you have to be a frequent user of the CVRD plus a frequent user of one of the other municipalities. And then of the people that are interested, a smaller fraction would be Cumberland residents. But yeah, we would offer a prorated refund to any current Village of Cumberland member who wants to try out the regional pass, so that there's no disincentive or to trying it out. And yeah, so we'd give it a shot, and we would aim to get you folks another report in fall 2024, just with preliminary findings on how many were sold. We'll have some initial data on usage and that kind of thing.
Do we know if there were any Cumberland respondents in the survey?
I don't have that in front of me. There were 1,300 and so respondents, so I'd imagine that some of those would be from Cumberland, yeah.
So people actually leave Cumberland to recreate? Is that?
It's what I hear. Yeah.
It's just the pools and the ice,
I
right?
was going to say.
Yeah.
My next report will be for building a pool, maybe.
Nerp.
Only if we get a lot of people buying those memberships so that we can afford the pool, right?
All right, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just glad to see this, the cooperation happening. Talking to a councillor from Port Moody, where they're actually throwing up barriers between the neighboring communities and saying, no, we're not taking, you have to have a Coquitlam address if you want to use Coquitlam facilities, etc. So I'm much more happy to see these kinds of barriers coming down here and some regional cooperation and that kind of things.
Yeah, I think there's a similar situation just south of us where they're trying to stop one local government from accessing, certain recreation services because they're not paying into it. Yeah, and it's really messy. So it's much better to have a cooperative situation. And I think this all started out really with the low income, or the LEAP pass, which
Yep, that's right.
the idea was to remove barriers for people, that they didn't have to fill out these applications at all these different local governments and just have that single application, and then you can access everybody's facilities and hopefully encourage more active lifestyles for everyone. So.
Yeah, and that's also what makes it operationally low impact on our end, because we've already got those procedures in place, and it's really just duplicating what we already do for the LEAP program.
Awesome. Thank you very much. There's a recommendation there.
I'll move that council approve a one-year regional recreational access membership pilot project.
Second.
All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
Brian?
First Street rental property and village-owned residential rental policy.
Okay, good evening, Council. You did see a report on the purchase of the First Street property a while ago, and at that time, Council did direct staff to commission a full inspection of the house to understand budgets and expenses, and also to come back to you with a rental policy that provides rental opportunities to staff recruits first. So we'll start with the house inspection. A significant number of systems in the house was inspected, and also facilities in-house staff did a walkthrough and kind of looked at things that should be done before repaired or fixed up and everything before we rent it. And so what I did was I took what the facility staff did was took the items that should be done before rental, and also the items from the inspection report, and anything that needed to be done right away, we started fixing right away. And so and then there's a couple of things that will wait until after that can be done while the renters are in the house as well. And so what we've estimated is total costs to get the rental ready would be for $16,000 for some painting inside, fixing the front stairs, some rafter structure stuff. We also created a shared laundry facility, and then also put up a fence in the yard so that the suite could have their own private yard area. And then also lots of flooring repairs to get it ready for a rental, and some electrical work. Then we have some long-term maintenance, which are mostly marginal. Anything in the report that was defective is part of that 16 grand. We fixed it already, and we moved on. But we did leave the gutters. We think that can be done while the renters are in there. The other marginal stuff is also similar types work, with the exception to there was an oil furnace before the heat pump on the house. There was an oil furnace that used to heat the house. And so we just have to do a little bit of research to make sure that oil tank was above ground, which would be good for the environment. Well, so we also have a rental policy attached to the council report, and it basically is exactly what council just directed us to do, is to put a policy to rent to new recruits first, and then to the public second. We included, for new recruits, we included firefighters, because they are paid on call firefighters, they're employees too. So we thought that was an easy stretch. And then the only thing is that so the house doesn't stay vacant, because you want to make sure that we put money in the reserve towards future replacement of roofs and that kind of stuff. The new recruits likely won't get the opportunity to rent unless the timing aligns, where it's vacant at the same time as we're recruiting. But we seem to be recruiting a lot lately, so you never know. And then, so basically, what staff is recommending is that council approve the expenditures of up to $23,000, because there is 16 in repairs that needed to be done, plus about $8,000 in regular operating type stuff. And we'll bring forward a proper budget to you in 2024 for all of those operating. But so $23,000 with $8,000 with rental revenues against it, and 15 from the municipal facility reserve. And then that the other recommendation is for council to approve the rental policy as presented. Thank you. I can answer any questions.
Thanks. Questions, council? Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, I was just wondering, we've hired property manager, so is that taking most of the responsibility off of staff? Like if the renter has some issue with an appliance or something like that?
Yeah.
Is that all the property manager?
Yep, through the chair, that's the idea of it all. Yep, that's how we want it to work. We want the facility staff to be contacted by the property management company for anything that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah. They phone at midnight.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just noticed that under operational impacts that there was a fair amount of staff time. Does this mean other things have fallen behind, or were they able to maintain their current sort of caseload, I guess, or however you want to describe it?
I would say probably, the facility staff, Wes, would have taken up some other time that he should be spending elsewhere on this. It was mostly his hours. He actually was able to do a fair amount of the repairs in-house, nice. So that was just simpler, easier to get him to do it very quickly, because we wanted to rent it right away. But definitely moving forward, if he continues to spend a lot of time on this house, we'll probably have to figure out what's being missed and then bring that back to you.
As is the case with any emerging item that is not in the budget, it takes away from what we've asked staff to do in their work plan and the budget.
I did have one suggestion, maybe if we're not renting immediately to new recruits, and I'm not sure what the demand for that is right off the bat, that we consider the physician talking to the good grief. Attracting physicians to the Comox Valley, and there's also a kind of a nursing pool as well that comes through, and who are on shift here temporarily, that we might look into that just to help out in that aspect. And I can get you some names for that as well. They just slipped my memory right now.
So if council wishes to include that in the policy, that would definitely be the way that you would want to have that happen, because otherwise the management company just deals with it all, and we don't have to.
What do folks think, or should we just keep it simple? I mean, they won't. The likelihood is that it'll be higher frequency of turnover though too, so that may not suit our needs. But
Or it may, if we're
yeah,
looking at employee housing. I'm not sure doctors need our help finding a house here, but
it's the nursing program, and I was just made aware of
Sure.
it this last weekend by one of the North Island doctors. It's something that they're having a problem recruiting for nurses and that for positions as well. So I can get back to you with that kind of information if you'd like within the next day or two.
Do you want us to look into? I am reluctant to make these kinds of changes on the fly, but maybe we could look into it and bring the policy back if we wanted to, or what's council's
I feel like
thinking?
our first foray into being a landlord, that's really getting it pretty muddy.
It's getting pretty muddy. Okay.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Personally. Like, this is our first kick at this can, so if we just, it's a lot of moving parts.
It's
What you're
it's
saying
something we can revisit, I think.
I'm not against it,
Yeah, no, I realize it's a bit of a last
Yeah, it's
minute sticky
absolutely
wicket.
something you
So
can revisit. It's
okay,
just a policy you guys can come
I'll
back
get
and
more
direct us.
info and not
Yeah, because
muddy
I
the
think
waters here.
we'd want to, we'd want to categorize, like the nurse would have to work here in Cumberland and
Yeah.
all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff as well. So
I'll
maybe a
get-
bit of time.
I'll
Yeah.
get more information and get back to you, but I won't include it in the policy here.
Awesome.
I feel
Did you
like
have something?
we'll have more demand within our own organization on that than we have a supply. So it's just that one place right now. I guess if we were to become,
Our supply of one.
yeah,
Everybody get your name in.
It's
Yeah.
two, really.
Right.
yeah,
One property, two
Yeah.
two rentals.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
just-
yeah, I hear you.
yeah, I feel like we'll max it out already. Yeah.
It was a list. So just
It
add
is a
your name.
list.
Name
It's one
everybody.
and two. Okay, that's a great idea. Thanks, Councillor Barecki. So there's a recommendation there.
I'll move that council approve the expenditure of up to $23,000 to be funded by $8,000 in rental revenues and $15,000 from the Municipal Facility Asset Reserve for operations, repairs, and maintenance in preparation of renting 3249 First Street. And that council directs staff to bring forward an amendment to the adopted 2023-2027 financial plan bylaw to reflect the revenues and expenditures.
Second.
Also, that council approve the village-owned residential rental properties policy as presented.
Second, sorry.
All in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, 2023 Capital Works tender results. Who's going to be Rob?
Me.
Okay. Hi, Rob.
Hey.
Welcome.
Pleased to see you tonight. Okay, so we have the 2023 Capital Works projects, First Street road reconstruction, Ambleside full road and underground utility, some sewer and water and storm, as well as a piece of road reconstruction up by Maryport and Silecroft, and a water main replacement, or a new water main installation on Union Road, which is grant funded. So all of those projects had a budget of just over $1.6 million, and the bids came in 2.1 to 4 million. So what staff did was they reviewed the optional work on the projects. They also looked at all of the design work that's in the 2023 budget. Likely won't get done anyway, and then I believe that they want some time in 2025 to really do a proper like update the capital plan and strategically figure out what they should be doing first and that kind of stuff with the engineering firm. So then in the end, they also removing the optional work but keeping one piece of optional work, and then also moving the designs out of the picture to use that budget for this. They're asking for. I'm just going to go back up to the front. Sorry, it is hard to present someone else's report. So they're asking for $138,000, I believe, extra, and that'll get moved, taken from the infrastructure reserve. And so they're asking council to approve the contract to the Napit Industries that presented to our contract engineers the complete tender package that was chosen for that reason. And then also to direct staff to bring forward an amendment to the adopted financial plan for the extra and the reallocation of the projects.
Okay, questions? Go ahead, Councillor.
It's a very specific amount. Is that the final price tag? Or do we have any guarantees that that's it? Are they, who's responsible for cost overruns? I think is my,
So
having been.
yes. So they can come forward as scope change. So they wouldn't, if it's within the tender package and they've bid on it, that's the price. What might happen is, I don't know, some things pop up that couldn't possibly have been foreseen during the design. Like a lot of times in Cumberland, and I don't think it's with these projects, but like in some of the projects that we've done in the past, a lot of rock has been, whereas we've done geotechnical and not been able to get a lot of, like that there was a lot of rock. So we estimated a certain amount in the design, and then during the project there's significant amount. That would be a bit of a scope change. So those are the things that can pressure the budget. Things that pop up that just wasn't expected.
'Cause they do mention in the report that there is a lot of rock on Ambleside, so I'm hoping
Yeah,
that they've.
but that's why it's not really, because
that is
hopefully
accounted
they've
for.
estimated it
Yes.
properly is what I'm thinking.
Okay.
But you know, in the past we have estimated less rock, but this time it looks like they've done a good job.
And I'm guessing that there is a contingency, some contingency built into this?
Yes, and engineering project management as well.
Okay.
I believe it's 10% contingency. It's not much.
Just a question on the contingency. Is that, just given some of the more recent projects, is that something we want to increase in the future? Like up to,
Yeah.
I mean, some of the projects I've been involved in municipally, we're up to about 20% at this point in
Yeah.
contingencies. Just,
Likely.
what's that? Or larger. I'm just like,
Five,
Yeah,
The
but,
thing about contingency, right, is
yeah.
is it just comes back to council if it's not enough, right?
Yeah.
Like instead of being spent out of the contingency, the approval comes from council at that point.
I think it's something
It's
to
not
consider
it's not
during
like the
our
project goes away.
Yeah, I think it's something to consider in our budgeting process. That
I
our
think you
contingencies
also at times want them to come back to council to ask for more money because the contingency may or may not get spent.
Yeah.
But if they have to come back and ask, that's an additional barrier, which may make them get the work done in a,
Yeah.
you know, it's another
it's one or
layer
the
of
other.
like protection for the village. If they have to come back to the council and ask for money, that's a thing, right?
Yeah, I'm just thinking we can discuss in a different forum maybe, but just as far as
Yeah.
for
No,
our
we
budgeting
usually-
in the future here, it seems to be
Slow.
more common than not. So
And I do believe that that's likely, I'm just trying to find where it says 10%, because I'm
I
going
think
by
it's 10 or
memory.
15.
Yeah. I think it said, and I do believe that normally I think we would put a 15% at least. So if it might be 15, but if it's 10, it's likely because we're just trying to stay on budget. But what will likely happen is with the new updated capital plan that the engineers will do, you're going to see some big increases with that, and those will have bigger probably contingencies because of how costs have been going.
yeah.
So you'll see the 10-year capital plan probably stretch out, or we'll need to put some more funding towards it.
Okay.
I just wanted to thank staff for painstakingly going through all those projects and finding where we could have some savings. It's not a great spot for us to be in, and I know it's not pleasant for staff either to have to put off any or so many projects, but I do appreciate the work that's gone into finding those savings and being able to make this work. So thank you.
Yeah. I'll pass that on. Thanks.
Are any of them storm and sewer separations?
Yes, I believe Maryport. I'm just trying to. So it would be Ambleside because
Maryport, yeah.
we're doing the whole reconstruction, all the pipes underneath end, so that will be storm separation. And then I believe Maryport, Egremont to Salecroft would be another storm sewer separation.
And there's Ulverston Lane.
That's oh yes, sorry, I missed that one. And that is a sewer storm, and that's another
that
project.
is as well.
That's
Awesome.
part of this. Yeah.
That's all good.
Yep, that's sewer, and same with the Maryport, Egremont to Salecroft. Yep.
Okay. Okay, there's a recommendation there.
I'll move that council approve the award of the 2023 Capital Works tender to Nappin Industries in the amount of $2,035,871.35, excluding GST, and that council authorize the chief administrative officer to execute the contract, and that council direct staff to bring forward an amendment to the adopted 2023 to 2027 financial plan bylaw to reflect these expenditures and funding reallocations.
Second.
All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you.
And the next is bylaws, financial plan amendment bylaw. Is that the amendment we just talked about, or is this previous amendments?
All previous. You got another one coming. This one just needs to be adopted.
So there's a
I'll
recommendation
move
there.
2023-2027 financial plan amendment bylaw number 1194, 2023.
Seconder?
Second.
Thank you.
Help us
All in
out.
favor? All right, here we go. Next one, reserve funds
Move.
establishment.
Reserve funds establishment bylaw amendment bylaw number 1195, 2023. Second.
Thank you. All in favor? And zoning bylaw amendment, first, second, and third reading. Courtney, come tell us.
Okay. So the purpose of this report is to introduce an amendment to the zoning bylaw to what we sometimes call a housekeeping amendment to two places in the general regulations. An amendment to a part of the projections into required setback regulation, and an amendment to the fences, screening, and retaining walls regulation. These amendments will correct errors or inconsistencies and affect all applicable developments on all properties in the Village of Cumberland. Meaning that's not for a specific property, it's just would apply to development overall. So it recently came to the attention of staff that there's a zoning bylaw regulation that allows eaves and gutters to project into the setback areas up to 0.6 meters for up to 40% of the combined length of the facade. This regulation has come to our attention. This regulation is inconsistent with best practice. The best practice would allow 100% of the length of a facade to have its eaves project this distance into the required setback. And this issue was raised by local builders. And in fact, there are 2 development variance permit applications to vary this regulation. At the time of writing this report, it was true that they had been submitted, but they've actually been issued now as a delegated approval. So they didn't come to council, so they were issued last week. As these builders were well underway, ready to get going, and submitted their building permit applications only to discover that they would have, that the projections were that they had planned were all the full length of the side of the building and not only 40% of the length. So we had to look at what the regulations are elsewhere in the Comox Valley, and in the 2 other municipalities, it's 100%. So this really is typically what the regulation is. Any concerns about fire separation related to proximity to a building on the adjacent property are dealt with through the building code. Typically, when you're close, then fire-resistant different building techniques are required, and that's all covered in the building code. So that's addressed there. And then the other item is something that we have. It hasn't been a time-sensitive amendment to make, but it's something we've had on a list, just sort of waiting for an appropriate time to make this either a minor amendment. And that's in section 4.4 about fences, screening, and retaining walls, where we say that if you're a flat roof building, you have to screen any roof, if you're a flat roof building, you have to provide a parapet, like a little screening fence on top of at least 0.8 meters in height. But what it didn't say is when. It's written now as if it's always required, but the intent is to screen rooftop mechanical equipment, so that was missed. So the amendment here would add that you're only required to put that fence on, that screening thing on top if there's something to screen. So about the projections into required setbacks, without making this amendment, I'll just go to the correct place here. If the bylaw stays as is, then it requires buildings of a certain design where you have a consistent roof line, which is fairly typical aesthetic in Cumberland, to be a little more than half a meter away from the property line. That can limit the buildable area on the lot. And in fact, even more so than I described in the report, on narrow lots, what we're seeing is people designing ADUs that sort of go setback to setback. They're the full allowed width of the property. I mean, you can space beside them in the setback area that you can walk, etc. So it would really change the design and limit the design options that are people are desiring to build in Cumberland for a lot of these narrow lots. Mm-hmm. And particularly because of the impact, potential impact on infill housing, things that are supported by the official community plan and council direction, staff decided to bring this forward to council fairly quickly with this recommendation to make this change. So, okay, in terms of the public hearing, it is not required for this zoning amendment because the proposed zoning amendment is consistent with the official community plan. And as well, so it's not required. And in this case, we're not recommending a public hearing be held due to the sort of minor nature of the amendment, and no feedback from the public has been received. So we notified the public of that council might be considering this amendment tonight in 2 editions of the newspaper as required by the Local Government Act, and we haven't received any submissions. I did receive some inquiries from a member of the public about the details, and we sort of like went back and forth and discussed what it is, but it wasn't a submission to council with a particular recommendation. So the recommendation, council can give all 3 readings tonight if council wishes, and then we would proceed to adoption at the next council meeting. If you'd like to hold a public hearing, you can direct staff to set that up, and in which case you would only give first and second reading tonight because the public hearing has to be held before third reading.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
I'm happy to go to all 3 readings right away. I had a couple of phone calls from local builders immediately when this came up. And it really is just a housekeeping. The previous bylaw allowed the full thing. Courtney's bylaws allowed it. Comox's bylaws allow it. Pretty much every house in Cumberland is already built like this. Yeah. And I want to say thank you to Courtney for getting on top of this and bringing it to us so quickly. So that they will stop phoning me.
Anybody else? All right, there's a recommendation there.
I'll recommend that council give first, second, and third reading to bylaw number 1198, cited as zoning amendment bylaw number 1198, 2023.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Excellent. Thanks so much, Courtney, for doing that so quickly. Okay, notices, motions and announcements. Transportation Master Plan open house is tomorrow. So open house and walk shop. I think the open house is open house is in council chambers at 12:30 to 7:30, and the walk shop, when do people, do you know, Courtney, how do people do that? Do they have to sign up?
Yes.
Okay, so go online on the website, village website, and sign up for walk-ups. Homelessness and Affordable Housing Committee, October 11th at 9:30 a.m. Council Chambers. Board of Variance, October 11th at 11:30 Council Chambers, and Advisory Planning Commission, October 12th, 4 p.m. Council Chambers.
And I believe there will be a heritage one as well.
Heritage Committee on the 16th of October.
Because we just referred them one.
Right, we just had one too.
So that was the September. So October 16th, probably at 4 o'clock or somewhere around there. Please check the website before you attend any of these meetings to make sure that they are still happening.
It's the 19th I've got here actually at 4 o'clock.
So please check the website
the
before
19th
you
at
want
4
to
o'clock.
attend a meeting. Again, please check the website before you attend any of these meetings to make sure that they are still being held. Question
Thursday,
period.
October 19th.
Our vast audience is empty.
They're all online.
They're all
Everybody's
online. It's too windy.
No, there's 3 watching. Oh.
3 watching. Oh, wait a moment for questions.
That's like an all-time.
Thank
That
you
might be me.
to all your viewers out there.
One of them's probably Rob.
One of them's Rob, yeah. There are no questions coming in. No questions. All right, motion to adjourn then, please. Seconder?
Second.
Thank you.